President Cindy, fellow Lions and guests. It's my honor, once again, I had a guest, but they tried to cut us off anyway. But anyway, he's still here. And my guest is Earl Atherton of the Boy Scouts. If you work the fairgrounds with us, his kids are Boy Scouts. Been doing it for, how many years have you been doing it? 10 at least? 10 or 11. Yeah, and they do a great job going up in the stands where we would make it up maybe one flight of stairs, but we wouldn't make it back down. At any rate,
we make it up that first ramp.
This is the Boy Scouts, as their motto is "Be prepared." Well, this year our ice cream truck wasn't quite prepared. Some of the people that we were going to get to help Bob didn't show up. So we're searching around trying to find somebody. Well, he says, the idea came up, well, what about Boy Scouts? So, okay, so we get together with the Boy Scouts. And they were at camp, I think, when we asked them, and they get about 1 day notice when they get out here and to come down to Go Forth and work the ice cream stand. So they did that, and I think they also did kettle corn and did all sorts of things for us during the 4th of July. So anyway, they were a big help for us there. They were a big help at the fair. And by the way, we're their sponsoring club. Anyway, I'd like to present Boy Scout Troop 702 with $1,250.
Speaker with us. Kurt, would you like to introduce them?
Sure.
Thank you.
President Cindy, fellow Lions and guests, it gives me great pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Today's speaker is Pat Kubin. He's a local attorney extraordinaire who is now retired. He is married to appellate court judge, Her Honor Jill Johansson. He has 4 children, let me get this right, Willie, Jake, Josh, and Jessica. I guess the question of the day is why Willie didn't get a J name. He is here to talk to you about Squirrel Fest. He's a local activist and organizer, especially with regards to Squirrel Fest. Before he talks, I want to mention that Dagging and Agnostu is a sponsor of Squirrel Fest. Joe and I combined, we have 40 tickets to the show, the band. We have, it's going to be 2 bands on Squirrel Fest. We're going to have 5 guys named Mo, which is the ultimate dance and show band. And then following that is going to be Slow Ride, which is celebrating the music of Foghat. And so we have 40 tickets. I'll hand those out, if you want to bring a guest, pairs of 2 or whatever, as long as supplies last. If you're interested in going to the show, see me and we'll give you those tickets. I'm sure Pat will talk more about the show on Squirrel Fest. Would you give a warm welcome to Pat Kubin?
Thank you, Kurt, and it is indeed an honor to be here at Hemorrhoids Anonymous. What's that? Oh, excuse me, Pioneer Lions. I'm sorry, I'm at the wrong club. That's later. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about national politics.
All right.
Too many blank stares and slack jaws, so I guess I'll have to talk about Squirrel Fest instead, which is a family fun festival coming to Longview on August 19th in the Civic Circle. Let's see, we'll entrust this to Kurt. You may recall some of my remarks from my presentation last year. I don't recall any of my remarks because at my age, I recall very little. My memory gets worse and worse. One of the advantages to that, of course, is that I can hide my own Easter eggs and wrap my own Christmas presents. But seriously, getting old does have its perks. One of the perks is that people no longer think you're a hypochondriac. But the downside is that I have to write myself a reminder so that I don't take a sleeping pill and a laxative on the same night. But you're not here to hear about me. You're here to hear about Squirrel Fest. So,
Reincarnated,
So Squirrel Fest, the idea started really about 50 years ago when Amos Peters built the Nutty Narrows Bridge to keep our little friendly critters from getting squished by cars when they crossed Olympia Way. And he built the Nutty Narrows Bridge, didn't ask for a permit, didn't ask anybody permission, just did it. That's the way it was done back then. So, by the way, that bridge was just declared a historic, not a monument, but a whatever, historic landmark. Thank you. See, I told you my memory's going here. I can't even remember words anymore. When Amos died, the Sandbaggers wanted to embalm him and put him in the park, but the city demurred on that, so we had to put up a huge wooden squirrel statue instead. The Longview Sandbaggers have been the ersatz caretakers for the Nutty Narrow Bridge and the squirrel ever since, and we take our job pretty seriously. The Sandbaggers thought about it for about 47 years after the Narrows Bridge went up before we decided we should do something else squirrel related. And so we decided to have a Squirrel Fest. And what is a Squirrel Fest, people say? Well, it's a fun, free, family festival in the Civic Circle. Now, most people don't know that when Longview was first laid out, the idea was that the Civic Circle was to be the center of the city. It was where they had all of their band concerts and all sorts of events in the Civic Circle. And you've seen the old pictures where all the cars are diagonally parked in there. And that was the whole idea. But cars got faster, pace of life picked up, and the park really was not being used very much at all. I was on a committee with the city, citizens committee, to talk about how to better utilize our parks. And that park was the most underutilized park in the city for obvious reasons. And right about the time that we finished our work on that, trying to come up with some ideas to better utilize parks, this idea of Squirrel Fest came up. And it was kind of a juxtaposition of ideas. Pat Seri of Columbia Ford had this idea of putting up more squirrel bridges and having some sort of a festival. At the same time, I was president of Sandbaggers, and some guys there were talking about doing something fun for the city, something really big, because most of the stuff we do is really small, like turning the sewage lagoon into a water park. That's a good idea we're coming up with. But that's kind of small. This is big. This is Squirrel Fest. And so we committed to action. We went down and we met with the Daily News and said, listen, you know, an event like this doesn't just happen if we can't get some support from the media. And the Daily News says, sounds newsworthy to us, and if you start doing it, we'll run an article on it. The Sandbaggers got together and had a couple of meetings, and we then put out the word and said, let's have a meeting to see if we can get people interested in the idea of Squirrel Fest. So we called a meeting. 24 people showed up at the meeting. That's, you know, you're on to something when that happens. I mean, the last time we had anything that big was when we floated the idea of turning the Monticello Hotel into a homeless shelter. You know, it's perfect because it's got the elevator, it's got rooms, it's got restaurants, it's got a big park across the street that's already being utilized. I mean, anyway, good idea. Free parking, everything. But I digress. Let's go back to Squirrel Fest. So we had this meeting. 24 people showed up at this meeting. And these were 24 movers and shakers in our community. These are business owners. These are people who are active, members of service clubs, people who are already doing a lot. And as you know, a small group of people typically does all the work in a community, and your organization here is a good example of that. 99% of the people don't do anything, and people like you and Rotary and Sandbaggers, we do it. And so we got these people together, we started talking, and the thing just took off. Check my time. Kurt said I only have 2 hours, so I'm trying to keep it under that. And so the goal, we kind of talked about what is the goal. Well, goal number one is free. This is not a money maker. This is giving back to our community because we are all blessed that we are able to live in such a great place. We're employed. We can make a living. We can raise our children. We want to do good things for our community, and we want it to be free. And so the original idea was to make the whole morning all free children and family events. And to this day, this is our 7th year, everything in the morning is free for the children and the families. And we encourage you to bring your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, your aunts, your uncles, everybody, down to Squirrel Fest for the morning activities. There's all sorts of free clowns and activities, and we have a group called Circus Cascadia. They teach kids how to juggle and how to walk a tightrope and all these other fun circus things, and all of that is very physical. It's good for the kids. It's not sit in front of the TV and play with a remote. It's all about getting those kids outside, getting families together, come down, have a good time. And while you're there, hey, maybe you buy a burger from the Lions. Maybe you buy an ice cream bar. Maybe you buy a nice squirrel statue from one of our vendors. That's great, but that's not what it's about. It's really about getting people out there for free. So how do we do that? Well, number one, we get a lot of sponsors. We've had a huge response from our sponsors, including Capstone, Longview Rotary, Sandbaggers, Columbia Ford, Bud Clary, Seas Photography, Monticello Hotel, the list goes on, and there's the micro print here of a bunch of the others, and they're all familiar names. They're people who do business in our community, and they're people who are willing to give a little bit back. We took that money and we provide all this stuff for free. City of Longview has also given us a grant of some of the tourist dollars. Why would they do such a thing? Let me talk about that. The goals that we laid out for Squirrel Fest about having all this free stuff for families and kids, the whole idea is to try to draw economic activity, to draw people to Longview for something fun. Our original goal was to draw as many as 3,000 people to come visit Longview. We don't have any solid numbers, of course, but it's hard to calculate crowds. But, we estimate that our typical Squirrel Fest has over 5,000 people. And I think last year we had closer to 7,500. This year we're aiming for 10,000. Now, of those people, we've had people from many people from British Columbia, some from the East Coast, some from California, some from Oregon. And these people, when they come from far away, they buy fuel, they buy food, they stay in a local hotel. I am told that on Squirrel Fest weekend, you can't find a hotel room. That's really good news. That's economic activity. Those are tax dollars going from the lodging tax into our community. And that's what Squirrel Fest, that's one of our goals. Another idea is as I told you, the morning activities are all free. In the afternoon, we have a beer garden and live music. Traditionally, the live music has been free. We changed it up a little bit, and what we're doing now is our sponsors, when they give us money, they get tickets to the concert. And so you can go to any of our sponsors, and they're listed on this little flyer, and you can get free tickets. The sponsor's just handing out tickets for free. So the concert's free if you go to one of our sponsors. And like I said, that's many local businesses. If you aren't from here and you come in, then I guess you'll have to buy a ticket for $10 to watch the live music. But when you get in the beer garden, then people buy beer and wine and other beverages. They buy food from our vendors. That money then goes into the pot as well, and we try to raise sufficient money that we can donate whatever profit we make to a worthy charity. In the past, we've donated quite a bit of money to Habitat for Humanity, which does very good work, as you know. What else? Trying to put Longview on the map. Okay, people know where Longview is. And you wouldn't believe the kind of stuff we get on our Facebook page from people all over the country who love squirrels. I'm not a huge fan of squirrels, but hey, it's Squirrel Fest. And they talk about Squirrel Fest and what a great idea in putting up squirrel bridges. We have a lot of squirrels here. I live in the Old West Side. They can sometimes be a bit of a nuisance, but we have them here, and why not use them to do something fun and something that generates some economic activity. Squirrel bridges, well, those celebrate art and history and also protect our squirrels. And I think all of you, I'll bet everybody in this room has driven by and seen a tourist standing out in front of that Nutty Narrows Bridge taking a picture. I've seen tour buses that are going from Seattle to Portland pull off the freeway. They come in here, and the Asian tourists get off snapping pictures of the Squirrel Bridge. That's great. That brings activity to our community. All right, let's see, only an hour and 45 minutes to go. Okay. So how does Squirrel Fest work mechanically? Well, the thing that made it work so well to begin with is that we allowed each group to kind of have free reign on each activity. So we have a woman Jenny Quiriconi, who does heart song massage, and she took over the kids activity, and she just proposes, I think we should do this, and a zip line, and this, and we should have Circus Cascadia. The board looks at it. Yeah, that works. That's within the budget. Go ahead, Jenny, do it. She gets her volunteers together, and they make it happen, and it is huge. It is fun. Then we've had other groups taking over the Squirrel Bridges. We have a group that does the beer and wine event. We have a parade and the entertainment. Each group sort of acts semi-independently, and then the steering committee takes care of the final result. This year we're having some really fun new stuff that's going to be epic. One is a 200-foot long zip line that's being brought here from Seattle. It's 25 feet high. It's done by a professional company, fully licensed, fully insured, fully inspected, really fun activity for kids. And another bouncy kind of thing where you sit on these things that bounce and go around in a circle that looks really fun. A climbing wall for kids and stuff like that. Also this year we have something new. We have Art in the Park is going to join with Squirrel Fest. And we've been trying to do that for a long time, but our schedules didn't really mesh, but we think it's a good fit. The more we can pull together into one activity, the more people you draw. It's like a symbiotic relationship. It grows exponentially, and we're hoping to have a lot of people come see the Art in the Park. So over the years, we've had some pretty good live music. We've had the Spin Doctors, which was a rock band from the 1990s. They drew a lot of people. We had the band War. I don't know if you guys remember that. Why Can't We Be Friends, and Slow Rider, and some other songs. The Edgar Winter Group, which had a couple of big hits back in the day with Frankenstein and some other big hits. And this year we have a band called Slow Ride with one of the members of Foghat, which was famous for the song Slow Ride, and another song called Fool for the City. Those got a lot of airplay in the 70s and 80s, and they really do a great rock and roll blues jam. We will also have 5 guys named Mo. They play 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s music, and almost all of it is danceable. This is a great band. They say 5 guys, but it's actually about 12 people. Horns, percussion, just great sound, wonderful vocalists, and everybody who's seen them comes away saying that is a great band.
Great hamburgers, too.
And they're going to be really great hamburgers from the Lions Club there.
Recovery, good one. Oh, slowly. That's what tired does, people slows it down.
It does. I'm sorry. I am slowing way down. Can you tell by the way I'm talking how slow I am? Of course, like with any other event like this, we can use volunteers. You guys know about how difficult it is to get volunteers. If you'd like to volunteer, you can go to our Facebook page, or you can call me. We have information right here that can give you some contact information, especially in the beer garden. We always need lots of people in the beer garden, making sure nobody without ID gets in. You have to be at the exits so people don't sneak in the exits and that sort of thing. That's a real good excuse to hang out in the beer garden all night. So I hope that you will all come to Squirrel Fest on August 19th. That's a Saturday. And if you have more energy than just coming to Squirrel Fest, then I hope you'll come volunteer at Squirrel Fest. And if you have more energy than that, well, then you should become a sandbagger. We'd love to have you. And I guess that's all I've got. If anybody has a question or two, I'd be happy to answer it in the 6 minutes we have left. Oh, I guess we don't have 6 minutes. She's already given me the... Thank you. Thank you.
Where are they gonna hook the zip line?
So the zip line is 200 feet long, and believe it or not, there is a 300-foot stretch that goes across the library lawn from the street back next to the Shea locomotive all the way back almost LCC. And it's going to fit right in there. It's going to be epic.
Question back there.
I'll pay for you. You gonna go with me?
I couldn't hear you.
Is the Sandbaggers just men?
Well, we have sandbaggers and sandbaguettes. I love saying that. Historically, it's been men, but we do have a few women that have joined over the years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for announcements, we have Pat Fulton, who is going to be at the campus tower right after the board meeting this Thursday at 8 o'clock. We have the board meeting this Thursday at 7 o'clock at Bob Paul's Cafe. We have Doug Harvey's meeting tonight for the Street of Screams at 6 o'clock at Columbia Security. Darlene has the Relay for Life this Saturday and Sunday. It starts at 10, but you wanted them there at what time?
Well, opening ceremony starts at 10, so you need to be there. You're gonna be there
We
for...
passed the budget, and the concert is this Thursday, and then the Squirrel Fest is coming up, so be prepared for that. And I wanted to mention too, on the back table, I have the committee and all the lists of the committees and who had signed up for them and what each committee description is. I also have been doing the Roar. I'm trying to get everything updated on the website. So the Roar is through Dwayne's videos, they're through the email, and then here and Facebook. So be sure to join Facebook. We've been putting some pictures on there so the club members can keep in contact with what we've been doing. So look for those.